Here are some details you may have missed from the F125 reveal. We're going to start things off talking about the F3 driver icons, then move to some My Team 2.0 details before ending off with Breaking Point 3. So the F3 driver icons, it was a small detail that I did point out in my initial reveal breakdown, where in a pre-order page, it was very clearly stated in the comparison between the standard and the iconic edition that if you pre-ordered the iconic edition, that you would be getting F3 driver icons for use in My Team career mode. Now, there was no further explanation. They didn't even mention the F3 driver icons in the official press release that we went through in the reveal breakdown, nor the actual trailer itself, just kind of hidden away in the pre-order details. Now, I'm going to try and expand on this right now and give you a very bold prediction for one of the identities of the F3 driver icons. We don't know how many there are. There are 2 gold icons in the pre-order page, but it could, well, I hope it could be up to 3 to 5. You know, the dream would be maybe at least like 7 F3 drivers. And I said this in my first reveal breakdown that I suspect it's going to be drivers that Codemasters and EA deem the next hot shots in Formula 3, and that they're going to make it to F2, and then more so probably are touted to eventually make it up to Formula 1. The best way to sort of think about it is if My Team and these driver icons were a thing way back in the day, then it would have been the case like someone like Charles Leclerc would have been, you know, cast as an F3 driver icon, because everyone was basically talking the whole time about him. He's like destined for Formula 1, and lo and behold, he's now a top Formula 1 driver driving for Ferrari. So that's the kind of, you know, icon I feel they're going to be picking out from F3. Now, we look at how Formula 2 has been handled in the Formula 1 games. Typically, when the F1 game launches, it's last year's Formula 2 grid that is there at launch. So for F125, we're going to be getting the Formula 2 2024 grid, and then eventually down the line, you know, a couple of months, they will update the game with some free DLC to give us Formula 2 2025. That's been the model of how the F1 game has treated Formula 2 ever since their first edition in, what was it, 2019, I think. So now stick with me here with this train of thought, but I'm going to give a bold prediction right now that one of the F3 driver icons is going to be Arvid Lindblad. He's currently racing for Campos Racing in Formula 2. It's his first year in Formula 2. The previous year, he was driving for Prema in Formula 3. Now, Lindblad has been touted to make that ascension eventually to Formula 1. I think he actually had a F1 test with the Red Bull family at Imola also earlier this year. So even though it's very early days in his Formula 2 career currently, you can see there are signs that he is being prepared to eventually hopefully make it to Formula 1 in the same sort of fashion that so many people are hopeful that Leclerc back in his day was going to definitely make it to Formula 1. But this is the thing. This year, Lindblad is in Formula 2. But last year, he was in Formula 3. And if you follow the model of how Formula 2 has been treated, as I said, that means he would not be in the game at the launch of it, and he wouldn't even be available in My Team down the order. Because we know from the previous F1 games, really annoyingly, when they update the Formula 2 grid to the current year, for some really silly reason, they're never included in the driver pool for My Team career mode if you were to start even a new save. Case in point, when they updated F1 24, and Antonelli was an F2 driver in the game, you still couldn't see him in the career mode at all. So I think, one, in a bid just to make the driver market more interesting in My Team career mode 2.0, they're bringing in some Formula 3 drivers. We already know the details of potentially this year, it might be a case of you are just the owner of your My Team. So having a couple more drivers in the driver market, i.e. some F3 drivers, would help maybe just keep your options open. And if you aren't going to have a full F3 grid, then you may as well pick some key drivers. And if those key drivers, if they follow the pattern of Formula 2, are going to be from the 2024 F3 selection, I think there is a very good chance that Arvid Lindblad is one of them. And I think I've also got a cheeky little bit of confirmation from Arvid's own social profile. Over the weekend for the Australian Grand Prix, Formula 2 was going on, and he uploaded a reel, which one key frame of it, which very much looks like he's doing one of those 3D scans that we have now been accustomed to for the Formula 1 game. when EA bought Codemasters, they basically were able to give Codemasters eventually the same technology 3D scanning apparatus that they use for FIFA, for FC. It's a pretty crazy, like, 360 setup, and that kind of looks like what we're seeing in this frame from Lindblad socials. So like I said, I'm stating it now, the 29th of March at 12 p.m. as I record this in the day, I am predicting that Arvid Lindblad will be one of the F3 driver icons. If I'm correct, come back to this video and let me know. So that was my detective work when it came to the F3 driver icons. Now let's move it over to My Team 2.0. We already kind of touched base a little bit about My Team with the driver icons, but let's talk about the mode itself. Because on the F125 features page on the EA website, it gives just a little bit more detail on maybe what sort of things we can expect. It reads, My Team 2.0, live your F1 story in My Team with its biggest update yet. Manage both drivers. So again, that, language of manage both drivers. So I really do think we can say with certainty that we will be fielding two real drivers. I really hope that you could still maybe put in your own custom driver into one of the car slots. If not, I think EA have made a massive error on their part there, because they've underestimated how many people would still like to drive as themselves in My Team, because it's still a career mode at the end of the day. We've spoken jokingly about EA and Codemasters needing to take inspiration from Frontier and what they've done with F1 Manager, but I think this is something they shouldn't have taken inspiration from F1 Manager. Like, the F1 Manager game, it works managing two real drivers because you expect it. You're not driving, so you're not missing out on an experience. But if you can't transplant your own custom driver into one of these slots, it's going to be a real travesty, because it's like, personally speaking, I don't know about you guys, let me know. I don't want to play a whole save constantly driving as different drivers I'm signing and having no through line of story. Like, I feel very disconnected to the entire thing if I can't have my own name that I've chosen in the cockpit for the entire time. I really hope there's going to be an option, but I'm actually a little bit scared about that. But anyway, that's a future talking point once we get some confirmations. Let's go on to the next bit. Specialize with owner perks. Now, we already talked about this in the reveal breakdown. Owner perks could very much be just a repackaged version of things like rushing R&D upgrades. You make the HQ facility upgrades, and that gives you certain perks. It could just be a repackaged way to make that happen. So owner perks. We've seen that with driver perks in driver career mode in previous games. So it could just be kind of a redo, a rehash of that sort of system. So that's nothing groundbreaking or new. What is new is going to be building up your team's fan rating. So I would suspect that's going to be something like based off your results or maybe objectives. F124 in driver career mode, they did try to give you some objectives to meet over a race distance in the middle of a race weekend to try and get some, updates and some perks there. So maybe this is a case of if you increase your fan rating, you then get, more owner perks. Maybe I think that would kind of, make a lot of sense. So it seems like there'll be some sort of fan rating bar, maybe like a leveling up system where we're gaining more recognition with our fans, basically. But it's a fan rating, I should say, not a recognition. But that again could actually be in its way a rehash of the recognition system, but actually for your whole team rather than you as an individual, which then gets me onto, I really hope they've not tied that to R&D as heavily as it was in F124, because we all know in F124 the recognition system was broken, where it just didn't let you make upgrades for you or the AI teams because it was too heavily tied to recognition, which you just couldn't get. The next bit's pretty straightforward. Upgrade your team HQ. That's nothing new. We've had HQ facilities being upgraded. Obviously, we saw on the Vista, it's an all-new Vista, so hopefully there'll be plenty of other kind of areas of our HQ that we can look at and upgrade, and you'll see the development from like level 1 to like, level 3 or whatever, and I hope there's more levels basically to that sort of thing. The next bit's interesting because it says balance spending. Nowhere here has it actually mentioned R&D points or R&D actually at all, like R&D as it stands. It says balance spending. So I reckon they're actually going to be putting more weight on the monetary value of making upgrades now, taking inspiration from Frontier, and actually maybe, I really hope this is the case. I would think ideally they implement the cost cap so that you actually have to think about purchasing your upgrades with your balance spending and actually watch out for the cost cap. At least that's, to me, the obvious thing to do here. We're going to have to wait till a deep dive to get some explanation there, but I find it very telling. They've not even mentioned the word or the phrase R&D. It's all been about upgrading your HQ, balance spending, and then the last bit is negotiate contracts. So I think this is maybe why they're confident, doing the whole managing both drivers is the way to go, because then it just gives you more gameplay of managing and negotiating two contracts every single season. I, for one, really hope they've brought back the mid-season contract negotiation, because it was a huge mistake on their part to remove that aspect in driver career mode in F1 24. It was a massive blunder. It really killed off a chance for a mid-season driver swap or driver transfer. And how often are we now seeing that in Formula One in real life? I think the last time, actually, I saw a stat that I think the last time we had the exact same grid from the first race to the last race was 2018. That is how uncommon it is now to have a whole season with no transfers in the middle of the season. So I think it's actually unrealistic for them to have removed that mid-season contract. So I hope that it's going to still be there in My Team 2.0 as it was in 1.0. And it seems like maybe they're going to try and convince us that, you get more gameplay with doing both driver contracts. But again, I go back to, I think that's a big error in terms of building your own story. You have way more of a story when it's you, not just two drivers. Like, there's only so much you can feel connected to the story you're building in a game mode like My Team with real drivers, because it's not the F1 Manager game. It's not the same thing. And then on top of all of this, a extra screenshot that has been included on the pre-order page for F1 25 on various different websites for PlayStation, Xbox, Steam as well, is this shot of the My Team career mode car. Whether it's, ready for a multiplayer race or My Team itself is up for debate. But you can clearly, very quickly tell that there is something very different with this. And it's not the car shape. It is the placement of the sponsors. Look at the number as well. But let's talk about the sponsor placement. You've got this sponsor at the top. It's got a globe. It's got logo writing in between it. And it is rotated. And it is, somewhat awkwardly on the edge of the leading edge of the top face and the side face of the side pod structure. So it's like it's almost been moved there. And you've got all the yellow stars, which match the TriStar sponsoring on the side of the chassis. But it looks like someone's enlarged the TriStar logo and put it all over the side of the chassis, the engine cover, the front wing as well. You can see there's a logo cut off on the front of the front wing. It's not been cut off on the right-hand side, but it is cut off on the left-hand side. So I think this is all pointing towards that finally, in the base game on console and PC, we'll be able to move the sponsors about. You can see also change the color of the sponsors, because on the side pod here, we've got a logo in black and then a logo in white. We've got some logos in yellow, in green, so we can change them to whatever color we want to try and match it and make a realistic and better looking livery. This is obviously something I've been shouting about for ages, is if we're not going to get a livery editor like Gran Turismo or Forza, at least give better options, especially for those on console, to edit their liveries. You can also see there's some sort of logo on the engine, on the wheel cover, sorry. So hopefully that also means that we can edit the wheel covers as well. And then on top of that, look at the numbers. The number on the top of the chassis and the engine cover, they're different colors, so that's great. So you can actually mix and match, because now sometimes it's happened ages where if you have a white front nose but a black engine cover, you don't want the same color appearing in both instances. It looks so tacky and awkward in all the previous F1 game, My Team Career modes, where it would be a white number on a white nose and then a white number on the black engine cover. It worked on the back, but it didn't work on the front, or vice versa. Now you can change all of that, and you can add to the base livery you've chosen by adding your own patterns, maybe, essentially, in terms of, you can look at a sponsor decal, and if you like the design of the decal of the sponsor, in the same way they've done it on this photo, you could enlarge it maybe and kind of makeshift a better design that you like using a logo that they've given you in game, and then also change the colors of the numbering. Hopefully that means also the change the number fonts, because this is a very odd font with a kind of dash in the middle of it, kind of giving me Alpine vibes, to be honest, with the way the dash is. But maybe there's going to be a way to change the fonts and choose from different ones of the actual number. So this is alluding to then a much better editor in game, console and PC, for not only My Team Career mode, but I assume this will then be available also for the multiplayer cars as well, for a benefit when you're playing online. So that is something they haven't, again, verbally talked about at all, but officially this photo has been uploaded everywhere on like Xbox, PlayStation site, like I said. So clearly maybe they're trying to hint at it, or it's mistakenly gone out, but it's live on all the big outlets basically. And I think there's, unless I'm massively misreading it, this is definitely leaning towards that. And I've already seen a fellow creator, Tom of mine, alluding to that as well. So kind of, caught me up to it. And now finally in this video, we're going to be moving on to Breaking Point 3. Some details you may have missed here. Again, on the features page on the EA website, and actually, in fact, more than just a features page, there is actually a URL that takes you to a full page dedicated to Breaking Point 3 features. I was trying to find a similar page for My Team, but it gives me a error 404 page. So I think this is maybe a little bit of a mistake that this page is live on the EA website, but as it is, we can look at it. It's from official sources, and the first little section says, experience the next thrilling chapter of Breaking Point. Connor Sport's legacy is at stake as chaos strikes. So that gives us a little inkling maybe into the story. Can they fight back for the title? So something's going to destabilize them, maybe in a similar fashion to how it was in Breaking Point 2, where there's some sort of incident. We saw in the trailer there was a crash between Connor Sport and Red Bull, so maybe some tensions there. This chapter introduces new features, including alternative scenarios where you choose which driver to play, leading to different objectives and a unique story conclusion. I like the sound of that. That's actually quite good. Away from, I will preface this, I'm not getting ahead of myself. They still need to fix the goddamn AI. They need to fix driver transfers. They need to fix the handling, etc., etc. But as a standalone mode, story mode, kind of sits away from everything as its own little thing. That's quite promising for story mode, because it was a little bit too linear in Breaking Point 2 and 1, where it didn't matter what you did, it kind of pushed you to one conclusion. Whereas here now, you get that choice of having different scenarios where, if you choose one driver, it may be fight for the win or fight for the podium. For the other driver, it may be, oh, you've just crashed with the Red Bull, you need to make up to P5 or something. So giving you a slightly different option of how to do each Grand Prix, basically. And I hope that's going to mean basically a load of different story trees that you could eventually try and get. So I suspect, though, it probably won't be multiple endings. It might just be two different unique story conclusions, depending on who you pick consistently. Although, to be fair, saying that actually might mean there are a couple of different endings, because let's say you picked driver 1, 60% of the time, and then you chose driver 2 40% of the time. Maybe that would give you some sort of, leaning towards driver 1's ending, but also a bit of driver 2. And then you can see you could kind of skew it over a scale of, who you choose consistently over the story mode, basically. But that in itself, it is quite good, because then it means hopefully episode to episode of, creators you might watch uploading walkthroughs and playthroughs, or if you just compare yourself to, creators uploading, or compare to mates that you're playing story mode with, you can get different experiences basically of the game, of this story mode. We've got a little more insight into maybe some of the new technology being used here. So Breaking Point 3 features rebalanced difficulty, including a new hard mode, making it easier for all skill levels to find the right challenge. So I really hope that hard mode is a decent step up, because consistently in Breaking Point 1 and 2, the hardest difficulty was really not that difficult at all. Like, you can make it difficult if you didn't try and go flat out and as you would in career mode or, you know, on multiplayer, but it was really just you're kind of there for the ride. Then we've got enhanced performance capture with NVIDIA audio to face, delivering more accurate facial animations for deeper immersion. So I don't know whether that means that, I think that actually means in the live cutscene. So not the CGI that is all pre-rendered. Like all the really high-end CGI cutscenes you see in the story mode, the last two ones, they're all pre-rendered, and they've been pre-rendered with different scenarios played through. So for instance, in Breaking Point 1, if you looked at the game files, there are a load of pre-rendered CGI cutscenes, and it was like Aiden Jackson consistently in the same cutscene, just rendered with different outfits for each team. Whereas the live scenes could be changed, obviously, if you were to put a mod in, for example. You could change things because it's being rendered on the fly. So if this is NVIDIA audio to face delivering more accurate facial animations inside of the live cutscenes, like the live bits, that also gives us some hope that actually that hopefully will be carried forward into any cutscenes and things we see in my team, for example, in driver career mode. So basically elsewhere, we might see a bump in the facial scans, even things like the Grand Prix mode, like the podiums and stuff. Hopefully that means the facial animations will be better than they have been, because they've been very, very similar for the last like 4 years, basically. And then finally, the last little tidbit here, and this is going to be really cool for any of you guys who are fans of the way the F2, the original F2 story mode, was implemented in F1 2019. If you remember, in F1 2019, you had Devin Butler and Lucas Weber, that's a blast from the past, in that story mode. And after you played that story mode, you could choose to implant Devin Butler and Lucas Weber as fictional characters in your F1 2019 career mode. So here, for the first time, it says, extend your Connor Sport experience across game modes. After Breaking Point, take the team into driver career mode as a driver, or my team as a team principal. In both, Connor Sport joins the grid as the 11th team, letting you shape its future. So you can carry over the entire fictional team of Connor Sport and its drivers into driver career, play as one of them, or it says my team and manage them. And so in essence, it's the same thing you could do in F1 2019 with those F2 characters. I will end on this then. That wording really does worry me then, that my team, you can only be the team principal, that you can't actually put your own character and drive as them in my team, which yeah, I mean, I was hopeful, and now after reading that, it seemed really like they're hell-bent on you can't put your own custom avatar, which I think is a massive mistake, and I will be pointing that out even bigger when we get the My Team deep dive, because I just don't like that's such a silly decision. Like, I don't know who's looking at that and thinking, oh yeah, that's definitely what people want. They just want to manage the team, and they don't want to actually, you know, be able to drive as themselves in the career mode. Like I said, it works for F1 Manager because you're never driving, but for the EA Cody's game, that is a massive oversight and vibe check of what people want from their game. But yeah, for now, those are some details you may have missed from the initial F1 25 reveal. Of course, get subscribed here as we go through the deep dives as and when they come. They just said April, so that could be as early as next Wednesday if they keep the Wednesday pattern, or a future week. So get locked into this channel, and as usual, as soon as it comes out, I'll be quick as I can breaking down everything we hear from the deep dives. If you have enjoyed this video and found it informative, then be sure to hit the like button, and I'll end it again saying that if my Arvid Lindblad prediction comes through, please do come back to this video and comment below and let me know, because it'll be really jokes, because I really do think I'm on the money when it comes to this prediction. I'll be shocked if he's not going to be one of those F3 icons for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.